I am Rachel Branch, and today is November 3rd, 2015. The East Texas War Memory Project is glad to be here with Mr. Robert Goodman. Present is Jackson Daly. Would you please state your full name?
Robert Warren Goodman.
And when were you born?
10th of October 1950.
And where did you grow up?
I grew up in Hopkins County, more around the Martin Springs area, out around Como, and been in Hopkins County all my life, mostly.
Can you tell me about your family and your family background?
Okay, my mom and dad, and I had one brother. My brother was born in 1955. He died a few years ago. So now my mom and dad are gone also, so I'm kind of the sole survivor. Beside my children, I have two sons. Both of them graduated from A&M Commerce. And now I have 6 granddaughters. So that's and I have a few nieces and nephews and a couple of aunts. That's about it.
What was it like growing up?
Well, it was some pretty hard times, parents back in them days, were a little stricter, and we had cows to feed, yards to mow. We'd try to get a job every spring, every summer where we could have a little spending money, and there was always farmers that would hire us. It was a little bit tough, but it was an enjoyable thing.
Did you go to school?
I went to school in Hopkins, in Sulphur Springs, until I'm going to say maybe November of '67. I dropped out of school, and I had a good friend, and me and him joined the Marine Corps. But the deal was, with me joining the Marine Corps, see, in '67, I wasn't old enough. My mom and dad signed for me, but you had to be 17 and a half before you went on active duty. So me and my friend, we joined the buddy plan. That meant we would go through boot camp together. So March the 6th, 1968, we left for boot camp. Got on a bus in Sulphur Springs. I just think it took us 4 hours to get to Dallas, because we went through every town, like go through Commerce, go up to Bonham, and across that area. And every time we stopped, we'd get somebody going to join the service. So it was quite an experience that day. There was a lot of men and women over, mostly men, or young boys. There was hardly anyone there 21 years old. So,
Why did you decide to join the Marine Corps?
Well, we had some seniors in high school and juniors in high school that had joined the Marine Corps, and we'd see them come home, and they'd have those beautiful uniforms on. And everybody was patting them on the back kind of deal, and we thought that was best for us, and we did. We got to boot camp. The guy's name was Frankie Hudson. We called him Hud. We were in the same platoon. We were just in different squads. And in '68, boot camp was 8 weeks long, because they had to have bodies to put in Vietnam. And I don't think I said 3 words to Hud while we were in boot camp. It's because we were working all the time. He was in one squad and I was in another squad.
That was your friend that you went with?
What?
That was your friend
Yes,
that you went with?
Hud was. Yes, Hud died about 8 years ago from wounds he got in Vietnam. And there's a couple of stories I can maybe tell you here a little later about him and us. But Hud was a year older than me, so when he got out of boot camp, he went straight to Vietnam. He was an 0311, which is a grunt for a rifleman. Most Marines are all rifle. And I got out of boot camp. I went to the East Coast and went to school. My MOS is a 2111. It's a 0311, 2111. The numbers are kind of the same, 11s. And what I did was an armorer. And an armorer in a civilian life is a gunsmith. I worked on all their guns, all their small arms, their rifles, pistols, 50 cals, and like that. So I had to go to school for, I think, 3 months. When I got out of school, I went back to the West Coast. Marine Corps is good about sending me West Coast, East Coast. And I was still, that was in September. You see, I was still 17. Because my birthday's in October. But they put me with 5th MP Battalion, 5th Marines. And I was kind of the associate armor. There was a staff sergeant there, and I was a PFC. And they had like 545 pistols. I cleaned 45 pistols. But I stayed there until, I don't think it was much after my 18th birthday. It wasn't long. And I went to infantry training. That's the picture here to my right with there's couple of hundred Marines in it. That's the infantry training regiment is the last stop before you go to Vietnam. But there was another stop for me. Everywhere I went in the Marine Corps, I got 30 days of mess duty. It was just common for me. So I think I had mess duty 4 times in 3 years, And anyway, I had to go through mess duty. Then they put me with the next group of ITR. And after that, I went through ITR. I think I might have got to come home for 4 or 5 days. And I got to Vietnam. Of course, March the 7th was the day I went in. March the 6th was my baby brother's birthday. I got to Vietnam on March the 6th or 7th. That's the day my bud, Hud, got wounded. They were out on patrol, and it was a squad, and half the squad got over the mine, and the mine blew behind Hud, and it caught him from his feet up to his lower back. So he got medevac the same day I got in country. So then as I went into country, is that where we need to go, I guess, is on? Or do you have, when I got in country, the first thing I remember, we landed in Da Nang Air Base. It's an Air Force base. You've seen all these movies, and all this stuff. When you jump off the airplane, you get in a low crawl. And no, we didn't have any weapons. We just got off the airplane like we was over at Love Field at the time. And when we hit the tarmac, it was the awfulest smell I've ever smelled in my life. It was a mix of JP fuel for aircraft fuel and something else I couldn't place. And I looked around to my left and to my right, and over to my left was caskets after caskets. It was the mortuary. And that's where the smell was coming from. they were getting the soldiers in the Marine, well, you know, just say soldiers for the easy part. They were getting those guys coming, ready to come home. And we're talking about forklifts. They put 6 caskets and loaded on a big transport, you know. The embalming fluid was what I was smelling. It was just pretty, I mean, I just couldn't believe how stout it was. But anyway, we got out of there. I really can't remember the next step. I think they sent a lance corporal in a 5-ton truck to pick me up. And that's all. We went to, my first duty stop was at Hill 55, which is south of Da Nang. And this lance corporal, he was a black guy, good guy. He had an M16 and 6 magazines of ammo. And we're driving about 15 miles through the country out there. It's getting late in the day, and I'm saying, you know, here I am with nothing. I didn't even have a good switch, you know. But we made it okay. Got to Hill 55, and it was a desolate place. I mean, there was a lot of Marines on the hill, and quite a few Marines. And they had SAM missiles there, or some type of missile. I don't remember what it was, but the missile battery was right behind my artillery unit, which is 175 guns over there. And at that time it was 155 SP, so the 155 SP is a little smaller than the 175 SP, and it everybody, the 08s, that's another group of 08 11s, they're 11s, they're the gunners, or the cannon cockers is what they call them. But I got there, and as soon as I got there, they says, we've got 250 cal machine guns down. We've got to have them working. We haven't had an armor in 4 months. So I get in there, get the 50 cals fixed pretty quick, and it wasn't a tent. It was a shack, or what, a hooch, what we called them. And the officers' quarters was right behind my armory. So I got them done, and I was going to tell the officer or the gunny, whoever I could find, that they were fixed, they're ready to go to the line. And I cleaned my hands off or something, and the biggest boom I ever heard in my life. I mean, it was loud, it was huge. And I just tore the door off the hinges getting out of the hooch, you know, to looking for a bunker. I didn't know what it was. Well, when I got to the bottom of the steps, the officers were all out. They had a little officers' pub there, you know. They were all out there laughing. I said, what is wrong with you, PFC? I says, what was that noise? He says, it's the guns. Don't you know what the guns are? I said, no. I'm a 2111, not an 0811. I've never been around artillery in my life. So we learned quick what it was, you know. It was that's why I'm so deaf now. Because all through this, you know, the 155 SP, our perimeter was quite a ways away from it. So it really wasn't that bad, and we didn't get as many fire missions out there as we did when we moved. Of course, I was only there on Hill 55 for like 2 months, and I skipped a part right before I got there. One of the SP guns blew up and killed the whole crew because they were in the tank, like, you know, like in your car, in your automobile. The concussion just got them all. So 2 months later, it came around, we were moving. We were moving to Hill 34, which is more south, I think, southwest of Da Nang. And when we got to Da Nang, we picked up the 175 SPs, which is the long barrel guns up there. And we moved to 34. But while we were moving, I remember one morning, it might have been while we were moving, we pulled up to the gate to leave Hill 55. And this little Vietnamese guy, a youngster, come up and he says, "Hey, Marine, look." And he pointed under the wheel well on the right-hand side of the 5-ton. "Look, Marine." Well, one of the MPs at the gate come up there and looked, and he said, "You got a hand grenade hanging down in there with a pin half pulled. Somebody had booby trapped that, and if we'd went much further, it'd have been us that was gone." But, and years ago, here lately, I've read stories about Hill 55 had tunnels all under it. You know, I don't know if y'all have ever read about the tunnels of Chichen, I believe, where there was like 5 stories underground. They had their own hospital, and it's quite a story to read if you can find it. But I just couldn't believe it happened on Hill 55, and we were walking over these people. You know. So we went on into 34. We set up, and I had a bigger armory there. And the guns started splitting up in pairs. They'd split up for a while, then they'd come back. We had one set of guns that was always mobile. They never stayed anywhere. I mean, they'd go out for 2 weeks, come back. But we put guns on Hill 65, which was about an hour drive for me from 34. Then I believe it was Sand Beach where the other one was, and that was about a half-hour drive. Because with me being the armor, and all of them had at least 2 50 cal machine guns, 2 60 machine guns, plus their 45s and their M16s. And there's a picture over here of us. It's laying here on the table. It's there it is. See, that's a starlight scope on there. Today's starlight scopes are as big as about the size of the bottle of water y'all have. But I would have to go out and work on these guns out in the perimeters, you know, 65 and then Sand Beach. But that starlight scope, you can see in this picture that there's a starlight scope on that big gun. And if you look over to the side, you can see the starlight scope on the M16 or my M14. I had 3 of them. But that 50 cal machine gun, if I could see you, I could get you.
Wow.
It was very well. If you watch the news much about it today, all the good snipers have 50 cal sniper rifles. But that was quite a trip going out to those places because I had to go by myself in a wore-out old Jeep that might make it and might not. But we made it every time. But let's see. But that's basically, I had more than one job. During Tet Offensive, the ammo tech, he ran out of time. They sent him home. He got out of the Marine Corps. So they didn't think I had enough to do, so they gave me the ammo tech job. And during Tet, those 175 guns, we're firing 200 rounds a night. So it's every day you take a convoy of about 6 5-ton trucks and you go get a load, you get them all loaded with rounds for that night and their powder charges. So the 175 gun fires a round, it weighs around closely 165 pounds. That's the metal. Then you put in a 65-pound powder charge in it. Then you put in a little package about that big we call red dot. That's what makes it all work. You know, when it fires, that red dot it's so hot it blows 65 pounds worth of powder off. So I was running ammo, I was running the armory, and I was running guard duty at night, and it was a little tough in them times, but it worked out really good. And then with these 175 guns, we learned, like, okay, the batteries where I'm sitting, a half a mile away where you're sitting was the Arvin boot camp. That's where they trained all the Army Republic of Vietnam soldiers, their new hire boot camp for them. Well, this was in monsoon season, which monsoon season's a lot worse than it's been these last 3 weeks. I'm telling you, when it rained there, it rained. So we had fire missions at night, which most of our fire missions were all at night, always at night. There was no fire missions in the daytime. And, you know, I would be out there on guard duty, and the big gun would go off, and in the beginning, one of the gunners would say, "Stand by." And it'd give you time to do this, or get your cigarette butts and stick them in your ear, because that's what, we didn't have any ear protection at all. But anyway, they'd do that, and one of the lieutenants decided that wasn't a good thing to do because we're telling the enemy what we're doing, But we fire the gun, the gun post fire the gun, and it'd go boom, boom. And they'd do it again, it'd go boom, boom. I mean, just about like that. Well, one of the lieutenants comes down and says, "Stop the fire mission, stop the fire mission." "What's wrong?" He says, "Our rounds are going off directly over the Arvin boot camp. And they're just scattering everywhere, you know." Well, what it was, see, we got these guns from the Army, you know, we always got everything we got secondhand, you know. There's a plastic cap that fits the detonator on the front of that gun, on that round, and that's what it's for. That detonator was so sensitive that the raindrops were setting it off. You put the plastic cap on it, then when it hits its home, it goes off. So it was quite a show, because it was really boom booming. But they figured that out, and we went on, did our job. Then one time they're at 34. Like I said, the Arvin boot camp was here. And I'm here. Right over here is the brig. That's where they keep all the NVA and everything that they captured. So the Vietnamese come in one night trying to get to the brig to blow it up to get their people out of it. Well, you could smell them coming. I mean, they had so many drugs, you could point right at them, you know. They're right over there. And I had duty that night. Well, I wasn't a sniper by Marine Corps standards, but I was the battery sniper. And I had this M14 with that starlight scope on it. And on one corner of the hill, we had a thing like big football teams at their practice fields. They'll have a 2-story thing where the coach gets up there. We had those. We had bunkers. They weren't really bunkers, but and it had a top on it. It was pretty nice during monsoon season. Well, that was at number 1 station, and there was only 2 of them. We had ground bunkers the rest of the way around the perimeter. It was a half circle where the guns were. On the other end, up by the main gate, there was a French bunker up there. It was 2 stories, and it was bigger than this house. And the French lived in it when they were there. And the only thing wrong with it, the doors were about the size for a Frenchman. It was about that tall. But you go in there, and they buried a French colonel in the wall in that thing. And that was really weird at night, you know. Because, I mean, over there it was kind of like it was here back in the 50s. When it's dark, it's dark. But anyway, that was our 2 bunkers, and we had our outpost around it. Back on number 1 bunker, we knew there were some men out there, some Vietnamese, Viet Cong out there in the wires because we could see them. So I was going up in the bunker, or the outpost. I'd get halfway up the steps, they'd start shooting. I'd turn around, start down. Go, start back up, start shooting, turn around. I said, this can't keep happening because I'm going to fall down these suckers here in a minute. So I finally just charged up there, got up there and never got hit, but you could hear them bullets going ching, 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 ching. So I've been up there, just barely got up there. And the post 2, 3, and 4 were just ground bunkers with sandbags around them. Staff sergeant down there called me on the radio and says, "You need the sniper rifle at post 2." I said, "Oh Lord." I nearly fell coming down it because I was wide open. Got down there and he took the rifle away from me because y'all always heard these stories about we couldn't fire unless we got permission from the skipper. This staff sergeant, he was probably had about 15 days left in the Marine Corps. He took my rifle, put it out there, and fired it. And for some ungodly reason, I had tracer rounds in there. I don't know if y'all know what a tracer round is, but you know it's bright. And he fired 1 shot. And I seen the tracer round go out just for like that, you know. It went out, came back on. I said, "Did you get him, Sergeant?" He said, "Yeah, if this rifle's any good, I did." So next morning, we go into formation, and the skipper says, I want a squad to go out and see if we can find this wounded Viet Cong. Said, "Sergeant Goodman, you're the sergeant of the day. You're going." I said, "Okay." So we got, you know, a squad, and we got 1 guy. He was a Spanish guy or Mexican guy, whatever you want. Good people. But you just kind of had to watch him. Everybody said, "You got to watch old Crazy Joe." But I didn't. Okay, I ain't had no problem with him. He's a good man. So we have a 2nd lieutenant come up. He's, you know, it's a butter bar. He's been in the Marine Corps probably 45 days. And before he got there, I told him to lock and load their weapons. And then the butter bar come up, and he says, "Sergeant Goodman, you ready to go?" I said, "Yeah." So we went out the gate. As soon as we got out the gate, the butter bar says, "Lock and load." Not a sound, nobody said a thing. He said, "Sergeant Goodman, did you hear me?" I said, "Yes, sir, I did." "Well, when are you planning on locking and loading?" About 10 or 15 minutes prior to getting to this gate, so we were already loaded. And we went out there and actually found that guy, old Joe, a Mexican friend. And I said, "Oh Lord, he's going to cut him up." That was Joe's thing. He carried a knife. And I said, don't you cut him, Joe. I don't remember his real name, but we just, I say, Joe. I could see him. I could see him with that knife. I said, don't you cut him, Joe. And I got over there, and a couple of more sergeants got over there. And that guy was shot right through there. But with that tracer round, it seared it. It was like, taking something, burning that hole. He didn't bleed. But right there in front of him, there was a hole. At one time, there was either mortar or artillery had came through there and made a hole about this deep. And there was satchel charges, pistols, and rifles and everything he threw in that water hole. So we got him back, and I don't know where he went. I imagine he went to the brig, but we never did hear any word about him dying or anything. But that was quite a deal. And those holes I was telling you about, they're everywhere. And plus the paddies, and plus the non-citizens. You step in one of those holes, you come out with leeches about this long and as big as my finger, all over. And the only thing you can do is take a K-bar, a hot K-bar, and cut them off. But that's some of the things we put up with over there. But we made it through that. I spent my 13 months, and that put me through Christmas, I think. And I told the gunny, I says, I'm going to extend for 6 more months. Is it okay? I said, I want to go home for Christmas. So I came home for Christmas that year. Never missed a Christmas, I don't think, while I was in the Marine Corps. I was always home. Missed the airplane getting back to Vietnam. I could be court-martialed, but at Travis Air Force Base out there. But anyway, I come back. As soon as I got back, the gunny says, well, we're getting a new armor in. I says, you are? Yep, you got a new job. I says, well, what is it this time? Ammo tech, sergeant of the guard for permanent duty, or what? He says, well, no. He said, you're going to run the enlisted club. So I was a bartender for the last 6 months.
What year was that?
Huh?
What year?
That was in 70. But there's a couple of things about being a bartender in Vietnam. One is, it was early, right when I got back, there were so many corrupt bartenders over there that they were stealing all the money and selling it, black market, the beer and stuff. So anyway, I took it, and it was once a week I had to go up and see a master gunnery sergeant in Da Nang, and my books better be right. I mean, we even had to, take I usually bought 80 cases, that's one pallet, or 160 cases, which is 2 pallets. Well, in all of that, you're liable to have 20% damage, on cans and stuff. I had to take those cans and keep them and show them to that master sergeant where my books would match out. And, another thing about that, we went to Red Beach, was where the Navy, where the big base, Navy base was there, and that's where we got our beer and stuff again. Let me cut that off real quick. And we was coming back, and I was up front with the driver. And the driver says, what's all them people behind us? They're standing out on the road just flashing their hands, doing like this. So they're drawing a crowd right behind us. I turned around, and at that time, I thought I was doing something right. They had, I believe it was Pabst Blue Ribbon beer in a bottle. You don't see bottled beer in Vietnam. And I bought a pallet of it, and like never got rid of it. And here's this Vietnamese back there throwing my beer out by the case. So I tell that driver, I said, put this 5-ton in high gear and don't slow down. I crawled out the window. Luckily, I didn't lose my 45 because I crawled out the window and it was, but, and I got back there and I got him. You know, just grabbed him by the shirt collar and threw him down. And I said, pull into the MP. It's up here at Da Nang Air Base. And we did. Yeah. US MPs come out. Then Arvin MPs come through. And I was talking to the US MPs and I said, what are you going to do with him? He says, you messed up. I said, well, I know that. He says, you should have took him about 40 miles out there and dumped him out. He says, all they're going to do is put him in their Jeep and take him home. And that's what happened. So me and the skipper had to have a talk because I was short beer again. You know, but that was quite a deal. Another thing about being a bartender, we had first 175 guns, second 175 guns, and third 175 guns. Well, third 175 guns was the guns that were always out in the bush. I mean, they were out there all the time. Them old boys had it. We had luxury, actually. We could go to the big PX. We actually had movies we could have them every night if we wanted to rerun them, but you know, we had movies, had a movie screen, had a popcorn machine. But those third guns, they didn't have nothing. When they come in, their clothes were tore off of them. They were filthy. But the third guns stayed out in the bush all the time, so they had, the money was divided up between the guns, so you could get USO shows and all this, you know. So third guns had a lot of money, but they didn't have a home base. So they said, skipper says, we're going to have a good time with this. They got money. We can have USO shows. And I said, and we're going to have a lot of fights. And that's what happened. I mean, there was fights every time we had a show. I'd rather been out on the guns or somewhere else than that. And I got Article 15 against me because I slugged the guy. He kept getting in my face, and that was really comical. He was a big guy. So I only weighed about 160 pounds back in them days. And this guy was 200 or something. Got right in my face telling me my beer was bad, you know, and all of this. You got the ugly bar girls, and I just got fed up with him. And I punched him right in the face as hard as I could. And the guy just stood there and looked at me. And I hit him again. And he just stood there and looked at me. I said, this ain't good. Well, then I seen something. There was a guy named Nick Negretti. He's a Polak. He had arms like this. But he wasn't 5', well, he was probably 5'9". And the guys and he was a private. I had two privates. I had Nick and I had Doc Haney. Well, Nick had grabbed this guy by the back of the neck, and the guy couldn't move. He had picked him plumb off the ground. That's why he was staring at me. But the skipper didn't like that. But the skipper got me in there, and he said, don't you ever let that happen again. I said, I won't. Till next week, and it happened again. My friend Doc, who is from Oklahoma, this year he came to see me. It was 40 years since I'd seen him. He pulled up my driveway. It was quite a deal. But Doc, he was another one of them that was private all the time he was in the Marine Corps. And right outside the M Club, we had a barber shop. All it was a little barber shop for one Papa San to cut her hair. Well, we had these girls that come in to put on the show. And I told Doc, I said, I give him my 45. And I said, Doc, I don't want nobody going in that barber shop. Got you, Goody. They called me Sergeant Goody. And we were in there, and beers was going everywhere, the show was going on, and then they took a break, you know. And then the other guys outside come in, and there was people everywhere. All of a sudden, boom! I said, oh Lord, Doc's done shot him. And that's what it was. One of the third gun's lieutenant thought he was big enough to bypass Doc. Doc shot her right between his feet. And the skipper let him go. I said, Doc, Skipper, I told him to do that. Them men didn't need to be in there. And he says, you're right. So that's some of the entertaining things we got out of it.
Where were you while you were a bartender?
Do what?
Where were you while you were a bartender?
Where was I?
Mm-hmm.
I was on Hill 34.
Okay.
Hill 34 is surrounded by fun. You got the brig, you got the Arvins, and you got the ammo dump. We had the ammo dump blow up on us one day, 3 days worth. I seen a truck the size of 18-wheeler up in the air so tall you could barely make it out. We had 500-pound bombs chasing our gunnies around the gun pits. They would land and they're still alive and they're just sliding around through the battery. I had holes in my hooch this big from stuff falling from that ammo dump. It was a beautiful sight because it was at night. But in the daytime when you seen it, it was so powerful you could see the heat waves coming towards you in the daylight. It was just like you were at the ocean and the big waves were coming at you. That lasted for 3 days. And we never had a person injured. Our battery, well, right, you know, I told you earlier in the interview that we lost six men when the 155 blew up. But we lost one guy. At 19 months I was there, he kind of a self-inflicted wound where he was cleaning out the concertina wire and found a round, and he was playing with it like a baseball, and it blew up right in his face. It was a horrible thing. Other than that, we were in pretty good shape. We had some injuries, you know, falling off stuff or stealing. Another story, an M60 mortar. I don't know if y'all talked about mortars in any of your interviews. You know, it's a big tube that sits in the ground and they drop a round in it. You know, it slides down, it goes poop, and it goes off. My guys on Hill 65 says, we need that mortar. We don't have any illumination up there. Okay, we'll go steal it tonight. So me and 3 other guys go down there and we're stealing it. And it was an officer's M60. It belonged to the officers of the 4th Battalion. And they come out there, they was running at us and we all took off running. I fell in a foxhole about this deep, messed that ankle up till today. It's still bad, but it's just being ignorant. But, you know, we were 18, 19-year-old kids. And that's about the way it was over there, you know. I was lucky. While I was in country, I met 2 Marines and one sailor that I went to high school with. Lonnie Tully, I don't know if y'all are familiar with this area, but Lonnie Tully owns an insurance company on down on the square, who would be a good guy for y'all to get hold of. I've got kind of a list for you.
Good.
But I met Lonnie Tully. I met Robert Jones. He's gone. He passed away this year. And Robert was standing on the corner of one of the busiest intersections in Da Nang with no weapon. You don't do that, you know, especially on the corner. Those little Vietnamese, they love those corners because they know that GI's gonna stop in that Jeep or that vehicle, especially a Jeep, because you're low. And what they would do, they'd take a razor, they'd cut that right there and take your knife. Of course, they didn't just cut that, you know, they cut the skin. And he's standing out there, of course. Robert was a little different. He was in the Navy, so standing out there on that corner, and I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Goodman." I said, "Yeah, getting this Jeep." You know, and he went and spent about 3 or 4 days with me. Those were good days too, when we had people like that. Especially when Doc Haney came down this year. We spent all day together. Had a lot of stories.
So what did you do after Hill 34, being a bartender?
They came up, see the battery, this was in late 70, or maybe, probably in August, because I came home September the 20th of 70. First of all, they called me up for re-enlistment. And I said, "Yeah, I'll re-enlist if you'll give me a staff sergeant." He says, "It can't happen. You don't have enough time and grade to be a staff sergeant. You know, you had to have like 6 years, 5 years." I said, "What's your other options?" He says, "Well, you could change your MOS and make a little bit more money." And I said, "Well, I'm kind of like what I'm doing." But he said, "Embassy duty." I said, and that was a smart thing. Right after that happened, you know, all these embassies started getting bombed. You know, like 243 Marines got killed in one. So I said, "How about if I extend 3 more months?" He says, "No, you got to go home." Okay. So I wanted to bring my guns back because I had a little excess of guns. I had Thompson machine guns, I had pistols. And it's probably a good thing because, you know, Leavenworth still had rocks back in those days, you know. You just couldn't do that. So I came back home and went back to work, raised my family. I went to work at a little local company here in Sulphur Springs, which I'd worked at as a, I forget what the word was, but you went to school a half a day and you worked a half a day, you know, when you were in high school. And so I went back to work for them, and they wouldn't pay anything. About to start, me and my wife were about to starve to death, was living from paycheck to paycheck. At that time, L3, which was Timco or E-Systems in Greenville, y'all probably heard that or been around it, or maybe you know, took some, but you know, it's out there on 1570, I believe. A friend of mine got laid off, and he went to work for this small company where I was working. He gets called back, and he comes by the house one night and says, They need tool and die makers. Once you put in an interview, you won't get put in a resume. I do. A couple of days later, I get a call from E-Systems, Timco, whatever it was. I go over there, they hire me on the spot. I worked there 40 years and 4 months. Retired the first day of 14. I've been retired going on 2 years now. And that's kind of it. You know, now I do, what do I do? You can see Marine Corps League. My Marine Corps League covers here. I don't have time to do much with the Marine Corps League. The last 2 days we've been up at the Veterans Memorial because Veterans Day is coming next week and the Eternal Flame won't work, so we've been trying to get the flame to work, and we're going to try it again tomorrow. But the Marine Corps League, I don't know how familiar. Is any of the other guys, I know you've talked to, maybe not you two, but Mitch Mitchell, little short, white-headed guy.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure you had fun there with Mitch. He's a character. And Tommy Allison,
Yes.
yesterday. See, they're all. Tommy's my judge advocate. Mitch is my historian, and we have like 31 Marines and Navy personnel. The Navy has to be associate unless you are a corpsman or a doc. That's what we call it. A corpsman can be a regular member, but anybody else, the Navy, they or the Army, anybody that wants to join the Marine Corps League can join it and be part of our organization. And as far as detachments, we're Detachment 1357 in the state of Texas. There's 44 detachments of Marines in the state of Texas. There's 8 in District 8, which we are in. That's 8 detachments is more than Arkansas and Oklahoma have total. So we've got the biggest number. There's around, the last I looked, there's 70,000 Marines and associate members in the Marine Corps League, which is, you know, that's what they always say about us. We're the few. But it's a very good organization. It does a lot of good work for young people. They get educated on how the Marine Corps is going to work. They're physically challenged there. They get them in good shape. And it's one of the better organizations, I believe, in the nation. And we really enjoy it. Our participation is outstanding. We have 5 uniforms, 5. And I don't think any of the other veterans organizations have one. When I see how some of them are dressed at times, you know, we take pride in our dress. And week coming up this Saturday, we've got 2 duties. We've got to go to Picton, the dedication of a Veterans Memorial there. Then after Picton, we go to Mount Vernon, and it's the 5th annual Veterans Memorial Service for them. And we get invited for stuff like that. We're still young. We're only 4 years old, well, 2010. But we have some good men, and we have some good men that I've got circled on that list there for y'all to. I've got a Korean Marine, Mr. Bill Beasley. He would be a great one. I've got 4 or 5 more Vietnam guys. I've got one World War II guy, but he's a good guy, but he's getting
Mhm.
of age. And, at the moment, I can't think of much more. We burn up an hour. I've got more here for you if you wanna look around, I can show you a couple of things.
Well, I kind of want to go back and ask you a few questions.